Chair. Steve Miller, are you on the line with us? All right, Jim Holmes, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Would
I'm
you
here,
like
by
to
the
do
way.
the roll call first?
Well, I was gonna start with the pledge. Mr. Holmes, would you lead us?
Oh, sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
Flag,
the United States
United States of America,
and to the republic
for
which it stands,
for which it
one
stands,
nation,
under
one
God,
nation,
indivisible,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
justice
liberty
for
and
all.
justice for all.
This is so cool. Jim Holmes brings a flag with him for the pledge. That's very helpful.
I always bring a bottle of wine and a flag with me wherever I go.
It's a good beginning for a 10 o'clock meeting. Thank you very much. Now, please, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Chief Saylor,
Here.
Director Perales,
Here.
Director Allen, Director Duffy, Director Director Frericks.
Here.
Director Gilmore,
Here.
Director Harris,
Here.
Director Holmes,
Here.
Director Howdeshell,
Here.
Director Howell, Director Lee, Director McPartland,
Here.
Director Miller,
Here.
Director Saltzman,
Here.
Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Here.
Director Sparing. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And we're going to identify that mystery voice in just a second. The next item is a report of the chair. This meeting, as you know, is being conducted pursuant to Governor Newsom's executive order N-29-20, which temporarily modifies the Brown Act requirements. As this is a virtual meeting, all speakers, including our staff and board, are requested to announce their names as they begin to speak. I'm Don Saylor, the chair of the Capitol Corridor Joint Powers Board. This meeting is being live streamed and it can be watched at the capitolcorridor.org/ccjpa-board/ and you can also download the agenda and presentation materials at that same website. Board colleagues and staff, please mute your microphones when you're not speaking to avoid the background noises. And for public, when there will be a time for general public comment in item 7 on items that are not on the agenda. We will take comments after staff presentations and before board discussion on other matters that come before us. When you would like to speak, please understand your microphones are automatically muted. To request to speak, please dial *9 to virtually raise your hand when we announce public comment. And when it's your turn to speak, you may need to dial or press *6 to accept the unmute request. Comments which have been received via email by 2 p.m. on Tuesday, April 20th have been provided to the board and will be included as a permanent part of the meeting record. And comments received after that time will be provided to the board following the meeting. Board members, since we may know your voices, we for the record and for the public, I will call for your comments, and if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand in one of the following ways. If you're participating via Zoom using your computer audio, please raise your hand by clicking on raise hand, and probably by now you've all figured out how to do that. And if it's not in the bottom right area, it'll be in the participants list. If you're participating in the meeting via telephone audio, press *9 to raise your hand. Vice Chair Perales and I will speak last. In the interest of time and to provide opportunity for equal participation, please keep your comments concise, but I really look forward to hearing from you. We want to extend our special thanks and welcome to the newly appointed director of the CCJPA board. Welcome to Director Sandy Amara. who has been appointed as the alternate representing Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. And please join me this morning. This is the first meeting for Jacqueline Edwards, serving as our newly appointed CCJPA secretary. Jacqueline, would you mind putting your video on just for a second so everyone can see you?
Absolutely. Good morning.
There you are. Welcome to CCJPA.
Thank you.
And Jacqueline has, well, she's new to us. She's worked for BART for nearly 24 years. She started as a librarian at BART and worked for 15 years as the Deputy Assistant District Secretary, and last 3 years as the Assistant District Secretary. So we're delighted to have you with us. Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
We also like to welcome Christopher Gann, who is serving as the interim CCJPA treasurer in place of Rose Poblet, who retired last month. That concludes the report of the chair, and we'll now move to the consent calendar. Mr. Paget, is there anything you'd like to remove from the consent agenda?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any member of the board who would like to modify the consent agenda?
I have none.
All right. So may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I will move approval.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Rayburn and a second by Dufty to approve the consent calendar. Secretary, would you please call the roll, Jacqueline?
Chief
Roll.
Saylor,
Yes.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen, Director Dufty,
Aye.
Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Gilmore,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Holmes,
Aye.
Director Howdeshell,
Aye.
Director Howell, Director Lee, Director McPartlin,
Aye.
Director Miller, Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing. Thank you. It passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Now we'll move to item 5-1. This is the operations budget and service modification. Rob?
Yep, thanks, Son. And we should have some slides coming up here. All right, excellent. Thank you. So this first agenda item is a great news item to bring today. This is to accept a modification to our current funding agreement with the state to allow a service increase on June the 7th. We were asked a question at the previous board meeting about criteria that we have been using as we explore potential increases in our service. And you can see here some of the key criteria that we are using, which includes ridership demand, where we've been watching trends, funding levels, which is very key, health and safety conditions, and equipment availability. For the increase planned in June, with the funding support provided by Congress, and the expectation of that congressional support was that Amtrak would bring its forces back, that it had furloughed. And so really this set an expectation that rail agencies like our own would make an effort to bring service back to the extent possible. We do think with this new service, we will continue to see the trends in increases in ridership, and we're going to fill some key gaps during the day. And in a minute, I'll go to the next slide. I do want to talk about the equipment side of this. This particular level of service is the most robust level of service we can provide with the equipment currently available. We share a pool of equipment across the 3 intercity rail passenger services in California. And as the state has been moving towards an increasingly California-owned equipment fleet, early in the pandemic, we made the decision to accelerate the return of Amtrak leased equipment to protect our financial resources. So we made this decision knowing that we were in the process of receiving delivery of single-level equipment for use in the San Joaquin corridor, and eventually the equipment that San Joaquins are using today, we will be able to use on Capitol Corridor. So what we expect is that for the remainder of the year, we will be constrained by equipment availability, but we do think this level of service is quite robust. You can go to the next slide, please. You go to the next slide, please. Thank you. This slide shows our planned service increase that will take effect on June 7th. This additional service is supported with federal funds provided with the most recently approved COVID relief package and funds provided by the state of California. With this change, we will be at full service between Oakland and San Jose. As you know, we run 7 round trips for that segment. And between Sacramento and Oakland, we will be at 11 out of 15 on weekdays and 8 out of 11 on weekends. So a very robust level of service. With that, I will pause and take any questions.
Does any director have a question on the presentation thus far? All right. Seeing none, please proceed.
It looks like we have public comment. I don't know when you wanted to take that.
Is your presentation completed, Rob?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Don. I probably should have said my ask today is to adopt the state's letter, which provides us with additional funds to support that service increase on June the 7th.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. So now we'll go to public comment. Is there any member of the public who'd like to address this item?
Speaker, you've been unmuted. You may address the board.
And this, what we'll ask is that we limit our public comments to 2 minutes. And Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Roland Turbine. I actually raised my hand during the chair's report. Excuse me, I got gardeners here. The attendees, members of the public, are not getting a Zoom attendee link, and YouTube is approximately running one minute behind the real audio. And I'm also unable to turn on closed captioning in YouTube. So I thought I'd bring that to your attention, and sorry about the interruption. Thank you.
Well, Roland, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think, Rob, we will be looking into improvements in how our meetings are shared with the public. So I've heard those comments, and let's see what we can do about that in the future. Are there any public comments on item on the
Speaker,
fiscal
you've been
year?
unmuted.
Okay, do we have another speaker? Would you?
Yes, we do.
Okay, please proceed. You have 2 minutes to address us.
Good morning. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? This is Mike Barnbaum in Sacramento.
We can hear you fine, Mike.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so I did have some questions I want to get out just for clarification on the June 7th service plan, and then just make a couple of comments about national service improvements that will be related. On your service improvement plan, you mentioned that it'll go to full service between Oakland and San Jose, but I believe in your presentation you mentioned that that was only occurring during the week. Is that weekends as well, or just during the week? And then the second clarifying question is, has the timetable been submitted to Amtrak and Union Pacific such that if somebody checked back at Amtrak.com in the first week of May and they looked at travel starting the 7th of June or beyond, will they be able to see the schedule at least at Amtrak.com a full month in advance before the schedule kicks in? And then my comments were just as this and others to make Amtrak great again. Just I want to remind everybody, starting on May 24th, May 31st, and June 7th, Amtrak will increase service to daily on 4 long-distance trains each of those Mondays, for a grand total of 12 long-distance trains, currently at 3 days a week, that will go back to 7 days a week. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Are there any other speakers? Okay, I'm not seeing any.
Speaker, you have been unmuted. You may address the board.
Would Jacqueline, would you let me know when there are speakers who would like to address?
Yes.
Thank you. Who is the next speaker, please?
Speaker, dial *6, please. Jim?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
Oh,
Jim.
this is Board Member Sperry. I've been in the meeting the whole time, but I don't have access to anything. So I just want everybody to know that I am in the meeting and listening, and I support the motion. So we're still trying to get in, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. We'll, maybe somebody can help you out here. Thanks for letting us know. Are there any additional public comments on this item?
That was the last speaker, please.
Very good. Thank you. Is there any further question or comment? Rob, do you want to address any of the public comments that have been made?
Yeah, if you'd like me to address that last question, I'm happy to do that. We have submitted this increase to Amtrak. This is the same schedule. If you remember, on the 29th of March, we did a major schedule change. All of this was a part of that. So we have all 15 trains planned in that service increase. We will be working with Amtrak over the coming weeks to update all of those systems which display ticket sales opportunities, so that is ready to go. And once that is done, we will then push out a more global communication with our customers and potential customers to let them know this increase is coming.
Thank you very much. With that, is there a motion?
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. McPartland.
Have we done our due diligence in relationship to Title VI?
I apologize. I had a little bit of trouble hearing the question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, I said, have we done due diligence in relationship to Title VI?
So we are not required to do a Title VI analysis. We are not a transit agency. We're an intercity passenger rail agency. So that particular title analysis does not apply to Capital Quarter Service.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, Director Saltzman.
I just want to move approval. Really excited that we're getting increased service. I'm sure our riders will be too.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Miller, second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Saltzman and a second by Miller. Please call the roll. See, Jacqueline, are you going to call the roll?
Chair Saylor,
Yes.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen, Director Defty,
Aye.
Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Gilmore,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Holmes,
Aye.
Director Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Director Howell, Director Lee, Director McPartland,
Aye.
Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And our next item is 5-2 Annual Business Plan Update.
And I will turn it over to our Manager of Budget and Administration, Kat Relucio, who will cover this item.
Great. Good morning, Kat.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So next we have the approval of the FY 2021 and FY 21 to 22 and FY 22 to 23 draft annual business plan update. So first I'm going to provide an overview of this year's annual business plan update process. Timelines for the process this year have shifted due to the impacts of the pandemic this year and last year. So this year in March, we released the initial annual business plan and hosted 3 virtual public workshops. Public comments were collected and summarized with responses. This year we had really great engagement in the public workshops, in the virtual public workshops, and we do plan to continue building on that moving forward. This process is usually done in January. The draft annual business plan and public comments were included in the materials distributed to the board for this meeting, as well as posted on the Capital Corridor website for the public to access. We normally seek approval for the draft annual business plan from the Board of Directors in February, and this year we are presenting it to the CCJPA board for approval today, after which we will submit to CalSTA. In May or later in the summer, we do expect to receive Amtrak's operating forecast, which we will incorporate into our final numbers that we submit to the state. In July, we expect to receive the approval letter from CalSTA, which is our annual allocation letter. And then at the September CCJPA board meeting, we are going to present the FY21 to 22 budget to the board for adoption. So next slide, please. Great, so some highlights in the annual business plan are discussions regarding long-term service plan expansions, such as the Sacramento to Roseville third track expansion, the South Bay Connect project, which is the formerly known as the Oakland to San Jose project, and then Link 21 as well, which is the new Trans-Bay rail crossing. In addition, we highlight some right-of-way safety and infrastructure maintenance programs for rolling stock. We're excited about our renewable diesel testing pilot and some plans to expand onboard bike storage. We have service amenity improvements included, such as the passenger information display system and the CalITP minimum viable project. And then we also highlight some marketing strategies to help restore ridership levels. Next slide, please. So in summary, the business plan calls for restoration of the Capital Corridor train service to pre-COVID levels after the first quarter of FY22. So in the first quarter, we'll be continuing operating at the level of service described in the last agenda item, which is 22 weekday trains and 18 weekend trains, or 85% of pre-pandemic train miles. And then in January 2022, our plan is to reinstate train service to pre-pandemic levels, full pre-pandemic levels, which is our 30-day weekday and 22 weekday trains. The budget forecast takes both of these service levels into account, and the funding required from the state will be reduced or offset by any remaining federal funding relief provided to Amtrak for state-supported services. There is an unusual level of uncertainty regarding operating costs and passenger revenue that will likely necessitate future updates to the budget forecasts, and we'll continue to provide updates to the CCJPA Board of Directors on our forecasts. And with that, this concludes our presentation, and we will be happy to address any questions that you have.
Chair Saylor?
Chair, you are on mute.
Thank you, friends. So I see 3 hands. We'll take them in the order that I saw them: Saltzman, Houdschelt, and Spearing. We'll ask questions and then turn to public comment before we get into discussion and motion. Director Saltzman?
So thank you. I was interested to read in the plan that there's a big project going on to reassess fares. And it sounds like it's going to be an overall, look at it and decision on what to do moving forward, but there weren't a lot of details. So I wanted to know if you had more details you could share now, or if you're planning to bring a presentation back to the next meeting, that's fine too. But that seems pretty important.
Yeah, this is Rob Padgett responding. So we, as part of CalITP, we will have a lot more flexibility about what we can do in terms of fares. And this is going to really open up the door for things like fare capping, where maybe you don't have to buy your 10 ride in advance, and lots of things that we can really change. And so as a part of that, to get ready for that technology option that we will have once we are no longer tied to the Amtrak ticketing system, we want to start to look at that issue and try to really open the doors up and see what we might be able to accomplish to open up our system to many going forward. But we'll come back and provide updates on that as we develop a more detailed work plan.
Great, that's really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Houdschelt?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I had a disconnect between Rob's first report and the schedule that looked like it was starting in June of this year and the middle column, which said 2022. Can you clear up my confusion for me?
Sure. Do you want to pull that slide up again if that's possible?
It seemed like the same number of trips.
Yeah, and I'll start to. I just want to make sure everybody else had the benefit of having that pulled up. The first column that you're referring to is equal to our service that will start in June. So our first service increase is in June. That will carry through the end of the calendar year, which is also the first quarter of the next fiscal year. And then our hope at this point is when we go into the second quarter of the fiscal year, we will be able to go to full service. And the first column is what we approved in the FY21 business plan. What we just adopted in the last item was a modification of that business plan to let us go up to that higher level of service. So I can see the confusion.
Which is the middle column.
Correct.
This says proposed for FY22, which starts July 1st of this coming year, right? But we'll be at this frequency sooner than the second quarter, correct?
That's correct. We'll be at this frequency essentially for the fourth quarter of FY21. We will go ahead and move up to that higher level frequency.
But the fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th.
Thank you, Chair. I forgot we're on the federal one here. Thank you.
Correct.
I was puzzling through that myself. Thank you for that.
And it's even a little more complicated because our administrative fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th, and our Amtrak fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th.
Okay. Director Spearing. Director Spearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob, on the joint marketing and outreach, do we have a cost sharing with the local jurisdictions the areas that we serve? I mean, can we make our promotions and outreach a little more robust if we can get some joint cost sharing? Do we do that? Do you know?
Yeah, we very frequently do that with our partners up and down the corridor and have active programs with both CCJPA funding and local funding.
Okay, I just think it's important that we really stress to them the restoration of our ridership, and with a robust campaign, I think we can accelerate it some. So I hope staff is pursuing that. Thank you.
Yep, agreed. Thank you.
Are there any other director questions before we ask for public comment?
Chair Saylor?
Yes, Director Miller.
Thank you. I was curious, the quarters refer to our fiscal years? Quarter one would be July?
Quarter one refers to the federal fiscal year, which is the fiscal year that we follow because Amtrak is on a federal fiscal year. So our contract with Amtrak follows the federal fiscal year.
So when we talk quarter one reduced service, we're talking October.
October 1st, correct.
Okay, got it. I was still confused even after the explanation. Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent.
Certainly understood.
I don't see any other hands from directors. Is there any other question from a director?
Chair Saylor, we have 2 public speakers.
Okay, very good. So directors, if you have Director Saltzman and Spearing, your hands are still up. So if you finished, then
Speaker, you've been unmuted. You may address the board.
Yes, good morning again. This is Mike Barnbaum in Sacramento. Originally, I didn't plan on...
Mike, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Originally, I didn't plan on speaking on this item, but Director Saltzman brought up a very good comment and question about a future agenda item related to this. And that's the one about the fares. And so I wanted to address that now since we were on that topic a little bit. I'm glad that there's going to be something at a future meeting being brought back regarding fares. I've noticed as the economy is starting to get reopen again in California, competitors to the Capitol Corridor are bringing back their services. and I know Rebecca and I talk frequently a lot on Twitter about BART and Capitol Corridor. And one of the competitors I brought up yesterday was that starting May 17th, Megabus is returning service in Northern California, nonstop between Sacramento and San Francisco. And folks can get round trips for as little as $4.50. Yeah, that's scary. And that does sound too good to be true at first when you hear it. But if you go to their website and just start researching and plugging in dates and their schedules, you will find that what is being said actually is true. And when you look at what Amtrak charges for similar point A to point B destination, it's quite frightening looking at the price difference. So Director Saltzman, thank you so much for bringing that comment up. And I very much too would be looking forward to the discussion at a future meeting about fares and how we can match competitors' pricing going forward as part of the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Barnbaum. Liz Ames is our next speaker. With Liz, you have 2 minutes. If are you there?
Director Ames.
Morning. Good morning. This is Liz Ames, BART Director. I cover South Hayward to Newark. And I would like to just emphasize to the board that South Bay Connect is problematic. We've had a scoping session. The staff is launching their environmental analysis as far as I know, and there's been a lot of questions and concerns about coordination. ACE could have stopped possibly at Ardenwood. That wasn't looked at. The station at Ardenwood was selected without coordination with other rail systems. Specifically, Capitol Corridor was supposed to stop at the Union City BART station 10 years ago. That was discussed ad nauseum with the city of Union City and also with the regional planning agencies. So I would encourage South Bay Connect staff to reevaluate the stations that are located for that project, the benefits, honestly, the benefits of time, reducing or expediting service from Oakland to San Jose is approximately 11 minutes. But if you add a Hercules stop, you reduce that by 5 minutes. So there's a lot of unknowns with the benefits on time alone as just being the primary objective to increase passenger rail from Oakland to San Jose. Not to mention the freight impacts have not been studied, nor the long range planning efforts to double track through the wetlands into San Jose through Newark. So I ask that the staff rescope the project and come back to the community and discuss these issues before environmental studies are launched. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ames. Are there any other public commenters? Okay, I don't see
There are
any.
no other public commenters.
Thank you, Jacqueline. So we'll now turn to the board. Are we ready for a motion or is there further discussion?
Haudashelt moves.
Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. So we have a motion by Bruce Haudashelt and a second by Director Rayburn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chief Saylor,
Yes, please.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen, Director Duffy,
Aye.
Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Gilmore,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Holmes,
Aye.
Director Haudashelt,
Aye.
Director Howell, Director Lee, Director McPartland,
Aye.
Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next item is item 3, CCJPA El Dorado County Transit Authority bus service. Rob?
So we are very excited to introduce our next item. This is our first action under the SB 742 legislation, which is opening up our ability to provide open door service that serves both our customers and other local customers. And with that, I will turn it over to Leo Sanchez, who will walk us through the change here.
Thanks, Rob. We have been working closely with El Dorado County, and we're really excited to bring this to the board's attention. So just as a quick reminder, I'll show you here along on the map. The service that we're referencing is the Sacramento to South Lake Tahoe commuter service. And so we have on the green line that you can follow along between Sacramento Station and all the way to State Line. This is a current service that we're currently operating under the Amtrak operating contract. And we've been working directly with El Dorado County Transit to look at ways that we can have a mutual benefit to both their transit agency and ours. This is actually a project that has been long underway on by their agency to provide this connection and service to South Lake Tahoe, which they currently do not provide. So this what we're bringing up for consideration is effective July 1st, replacing the existing service with this service that we would hand off to El Dorado County, and they would then be able to provide this service that would take us between Sacramento Station all the way to State Line. And like Rob mentioned, this would be an open door type service that would start effective immediately once this is adopted. So a few key highlights that I want to bring to your attention on this route is that this partnership would result in a direct reduction in 40% of the operating costs, and plus additional savings depending on the revenue that's generated. So obviously right now, our existing service is far below, our ridership is far below what it used to be, but we are seeing some steady increases also on this route. So some of the savings generated we could also put towards facilitating future service increases that they actually have the capacity and are able to increase from the current service that we're operating is one round trip between Sacramento and South Lake Tahoe, and they actually have the ability to do at least one additional round trip and potentially up to 3 round trips. And just so you understand what this 40% cost looks like through FY 2024, this is roughly just under $300,000 in savings that could be generated as part of this partnership. And then just to highlight some of the pattern of what this looks like is that the early buses would be headed westbound and evening buses would be headed eastbound, which is essentially the same pattern that we're currently operating. One other key element behind this partnership is that there's also the opportunity to seek some funding and opportunity from the state to try to work on improving the existing fleet and working towards a zero-emission fleet by 2035, as has been indicated by the state. So I think that's about all I have for this. So with that, I do want to restate that the request for the board is a budget not to exceed $185,000 per year between FY 22, 23, and 24. And this would be for a joint partnership between CCJPA and El Dorado Transit. And this is a similar effort that we will then be looking for to do with other agencies. So thank you, and I'll hold here in case there are other questions or comments.
And I'd like to clarify just a contract issue, just so it's clear. So for all of our through bus services, the way that it works is that Amtrak essentially passes through those costs to us. And so in this case, we'll have a direct relationship with the transit agency, and those costs that we're formally paying for a contractor to provide this through service to South Lake Tahoe would end, and we would do this in partnership with El Dorado Transit. Thanks very much.
Very good. Thank you, Rob. So we have time for board questions, then we'll go to public comment and discussion and a motion. We have Director Rayburn and Director Spearing. I'm not sure if you have questions on this item or if your hand is perpetually raised. which I would understand, actually. That would make sense. Director Rayburn, do you have a question?
Well, thank you, Chair Saylor. I don't have a question. I'm very excited, however, about the prospect of the dividends from Senate Bill 742 coming to fruition finally. What's not to like? We have improved service and reduced cost. And I just hope that this serves as a model for other communities in the regions not directly connected with rail lines, that we can interconnect the entire state. I will be supporting this and I'm willing to move it, but first hear from other public comments.
You will be the motion maker. Mr. Harris and then Mr. Frericks.
Thank you, Chair Saylor. I'd just like to tag along with Director Rayburn there. I think this has the potential to be a tremendous partnership, a really positive turn of events, and I am also excited about it. Thank you, Don.
Excellent. Director Frericks.
Yeah, likewise, add my voice to the chorus of excitement over this item. I really want to just commend staff for really working. I mean, aside from the fact that we do now have an ability due to the change in state legislation or state law on this item, I do think that I really want to commend staff for sort of, seeing a need. This is a need that exists and sort of trying to fill that need. And I'm looking forward to, it's a destination that obviously we are hearing in numerous news stories about the increase of folks who are, now moving to Tahoe as well. And the transit options are limited there. And so I really commend staff for trying to take this on. I'm hopeful that it will be a successful service. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Lucas. Are there any other board questions before we ask for public comment? Okay. Are there any members of the public who'd like to address the board on this topic?
There are no one with their hands raised.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Rayburn, you made a motion.
I move approval.
Mr. Harris,
Second.
I think Mr. Harris was the second. So please call the roll.
Chief Saylor,
Aye.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen, Director Defty,
Aye.
Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Gilmore,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Holmes,
Aye.
Director Howdeshelt,
Enthusiastically aye.
Director Howell, Director Lee, Director McPartlin,
Aye.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Spearing.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Thank you. It passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you, everybody. And this is very exciting. I appreciate the work and the comments from our colleagues. Item 4 is legislation and funding. Rob?
Yep, we should have a slide for this one as well. So I just want to go through quickly a couple of things of note. First, we've already talked about our 3 COVID relief bills that have provided funding to Capital Corridor Service. We absolutely want to send our appreciation to Congress for that support. It is letting us do what we're doing today by adding service. It is putting us in a good place moving forward. The second thing I want to mention is President Biden's infrastructure plan. We do not have the detailed text yet of this legislation, but our understanding is that there will be $80 billion dedicated to intercity passenger rail. And although we do not have specifics out there yet, our understanding is that, our informal understanding is that $39 billion of that will be targeted to the Northeast Corridor, $5 billion to freight capacity, which would also include potentially eligibility for grade crossing projects, $20 billion for corridor development, and $16 billion for Amtrak capital investment outside the Northeast Corridor. We need to see the details and understand which of those sources are available to CCJPA, but we think most likely the corridor development, the $20 billion in corridor development, is the funding that will be available to our projects. Lastly, I will mention that congressional staff continues to work on the legislation to reauthorize the FAST Act, which currently expires on September 30th. We do not have a full draft of the bill yet. We expect that soon. And we do have an action item related to earmarks that we'll go to, but before that, I know Chair Saylor wanted to just mention a few comments about the recently formed ad hoc committee on reauthorization.
So you probably all recall that a couple of meetings ago, we called for volunteers to participate in a legislative ad hoc subcommittee to provide sort of a sounding board for Mr. Paget as the fast-moving matters in the Congress get heated up. So we did have our first meeting. The members are myself, Director Saltzman, Director Frericks, and Director Rayburn. We had our first meeting in March. We discussed the intercity passenger rail legislation, our key partners in advocacy, and legislative proposals under the HR2 Moving Forward Act. Our staff identified key issues that will impact state-supported intercity passenger rail services, including Section 209 reforms that will impact Amtrak costs for state-supported services, discretionary funding, programs for intercity passenger rail, and the potential for formula funds to states. We are very fortunate in this process because Director Paget has a vast amount of experience and quite a few contacts who will be talking through these issues in the next few months. We will be seeing drafts of the reauthorization legislation probably in the late spring of this year, which is coming up pretty quickly. So the idea here is that our board doesn't meet so frequently that we'll be able to respond to urgent calls for information or feedback to the director or managing director. So this subcommittee will serve that purpose, and of course we'll report to the board on any matters that come forward. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. And I do have one more slide for our action item. We are responding to a request for earmark projects and have been working with Representative Khanna's staff to seek support for an earmark in either the FY22 appropriations bill or the reauthorization bill for $6.1 million to fund the remainder of the siding project in Santa Clara. This is a project we have brought to the board before, and we are in the process of designing this siding, which is a 2,500-foot siding. It will provide immense benefits to the area south of Oakland, lots of reliability improvement, and also allow us to serve the stadium for special events. The other added benefit of this, and part of the reason why we can ask for an earmark, is that it has a benefit to transit. ACE also uses this part of the corridor, and it will have a benefit to ACE as well. So our ask today is that the board authorize us to move forward with that request.
Okay, very good. So that's a specific action that the board is being asked to take. Board members, are there any questions regarding this item? I don't see any at this point. Are there any public comments on this item?
No public comments.
All right, very good. We're ready for a motion. Is there a motion to authorize
approval.
this remark?
Second, Gilmore.
Okay, so who was the maker of the motion?
Holmes. Oh, Holmes.
Okay, thank you very much. So Director Holmes made the motion, Director Gilmore seconded it. Please call the roll.
Chief Saylor,
Yes.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen, Director Defty, Director Defty,
Aye, sorry.
Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Gilmore,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Holmes,
Aye.
Director Howdeshell,
Aye.
Director Howell, Director Lee, Director McPartlin,
Aye.
Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously.
Very good, thank you. Next item is item 5, capital projects update.
All right. So as you know, we come to the board as part of our capital projects update and highlight a project. And we often come with a big project, but we are doing lots of, call them smaller projects, which we do in continuous partnership with Union Pacific. Things like signal upgrades, interlocking improvements, track upgrades. And today we want to come to you with a project that is in that vein, and we'll have Joel Cox, our engineer, go through where we are in this project. But the other added benefit of this project is it opens the door for a very substantial improvement to the Davis station. So with that, I will turn it over to Joel to give us a quick update.
Thank you, Rob. So in cooperation with the Union Pacific, Amtrak, and the City of Davis, the Capital Corridor is advancing the Davis Crossover and Signal Replacement Project, which you can see outlined here on the slide. The new track that will be installed is shown in green and is replacing the existing facilities in blue that will be removed. This project will replace those track crossovers at East Davis, just east of the depot, as well as the railroad signals, all of the railroad signals in the vicinity of the Davis Depot. The project will result in higher train speeds for trains that cross from one main track to another, which will result in better on-time reliability for all trains. And also we can expect better reliability from the railroad signal system in this area. For this project, the Capital Corridor is leading the track and civil design and has reached the 25% design milestone. Union Pacific will soon complete the design of the railroad signal systems. Construction is expected to be performed by the City of Davis, by the Capital Corridor, and by the Union Pacific Railroad for this project. Let's see, the other exciting thing is that this crossover and signal replacement project will serve as a first phase, a first necessary phase in order to unlock a much larger project to replace the boarding platforms at the Davis Depot. Next slide, please. So in order to address significant safety and operational issues at Davis, the boarding platforms are planned to be replaced. The tracks will be realigned and a single island boarding platform will be constructed with grade separated pedestrian access, much like the configuration at our most recently built platform station, the Hannigan Fairfield Vacaville station. So in this slide, in this diagram, the purple outline shows the location of the Davis Depot, and the green lines and the light blue show the newly constructed and realigned tracks and boarding platform. So it'll be a single platform serving both mainline tracks at the Davis Depot. This configuration will offer major improvements to safety, operations, and access. Safety will be improved as the passengers will no longer have the option of crossing tracks in order to reach their train. Operations will be enhanced because the station will no longer be limited to the use by just one train at a time. And access will be improved by providing a pedestrian and bicycle route to the underserved community around Olive Drive and South Davis. For this project, Amtrak is leading the design, and they are expected to begin that design process in the next month. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Are there any questions on this from any member of the board? Okay, very good presentation, exciting project, and I love that it sets the stage for the next stage. Are there any public comments on this?
There are not.
Okay, very good, thank you. Moving to the item 6, the Oakland Waterfront Ballpark District. This is the draft EIR comment letter. Rob?
Thank you. So our next topic relates to our comment letter for the Oakland Waterfront Ballpark District project. We normally would not bring an item like this to the board, but we think it's important to highlight our concerns. As you know, we are committed to public safety and believe it's imperative to address the issues we will describe today to ensure the safety of Capitol Corridor operations. This will be a two-part presentation. First, I'm happy to introduce Adrian Guerrero, who is the General Director for Public Affairs at Union Pacific. While we normally do not see Union Pacific at our meetings, we know they are a vital partner to our operations, and we very much appreciate their participation today. UP has developed a video which I think you will find helpful. It is focused on freight operations, but certainly takes a complicated issue and helps all of us understand some of the implications of the current proposal. That video will be followed by Jim Allison, our Planning Director at Capitol Corridor, who will present an overview of the comments we intend to submit. I do want, before we turn it over to Adrian, who will introduce the video, I do want to note, I've been told to warn those who are listening, if your video quality is a little off, it is likely due to your own internet connection. This will be recorded as we do all of our public meetings, and you can later go back and look at this online. So with that, I will turn it over to Adrian Guerrero, who I hope is on the line now.
I am here, Rob. Thanks for the kind introduction, Chair Saylor.
Well, Adrian, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We are really pleased that you're able to spend time with us today, and I join Rob in welcoming you and thanking Amtrak for your partnership. And UP, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chair. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, no, thanks for the introduction, and directors. It's great to see all of you. I've worked with many of you over the years. I've come into the public affairs role more recently, but for the past couple of years, I've been working on our strong partnership with Capitol Corridor when I was on our network planning side of the house, working on various agreements and public-private partnerships. And so this is this matter is one that has straddled both of those positions for me. And I've been keenly involved with Capitol Corridor, with the City of Oakland, with the Port of Oakland, and with the Oakland Athletics on discussing the proposed ballpark district project. Real quick, synopsis, UP obviously owns and manages the freight operations within the Oakland terminal. BNSF also operates on the Union Pacific network coming in and out of the terminal. And when we heard that the Howard terminal was being identified as a potential ballpark site, we began discussions with various stakeholders and quickly identified significant safety concerns proposed with the ballpark project, as the vast majority of access, ingress, and egress to the ballpark site would be over existing grade crossings at Market and MLK, directly in front of Howard Terminal. For those of you that have spent time in Jack London Square, you know that there's a lot of freight traffic coming through there, and you know that there's a significant amount of passenger trains coming through. If you go just a little further down the road to the industrial side, that is where UP operates our freight trains, and particularly our switching trains, which take our trains and cut them into smaller trains that can be built for longer service and for local service at the yard. As we explained the issue in switching, which stops in front of those crossings anywhere from 10 to 45 minutes and sometimes longer, it was quickly observed that folks without a lot of rail experience didn't understand the operation. And unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to host people on our property or at the yard to show what that operation looked like. So over the past couple of months, we've been working on developing the animation video that we're going to share, which explains the issue, which explains the concerns that UP has raised in conjunction with Capitol Corridor. And we're hoping that the video and the message with it will better resonate with city leadership, with various stakeholders, and with the Oakland A's to incorporate these responsible issues and develop a smarter project as a result of it. So with that, I will reserve the rest of my comments. And Rob, if your team can play the video, I think the rest of it will speak for itself.
The Oakland A's are proposing to build a 35,000-seat stadium, residential units, and retail space on existing industrial property at the Port of Oakland's Howard Terminal site. Howard Terminal is located directly between two major Union Pacific rail yards and a busy passenger rail station. Union Pacific believes developing the Howard Terminal site without removing all rail, vehicle, and pedestrian conflicts will exacerbate roadway congestion and creates significant safety risks. Here's why. Union Pacific's 32,000-mile rail network across 23 states connects Oakland with both national and international markets. Passenger and freight trains across Northern California remove cars and trucks from our already congested highways. Unlike passenger trains, freight trains destined for Oakland have variable schedules. Freight trains are also carrying goods that American consumers rely on every day and supporting imports and exports at the Port of Oakland. These trains must enter Union Pacific's Oakland rail yard before rail cars can be unloaded or delivered to local customers. Many freight trains destined for Oakland must pull through Union Pacific's rail yard, stopping directly in front of Howard Terminal. The train's crew members will then work together to separate the train into 3 sections, setting railcar brakes to secure the train, and finally placing the remaining train section back into an adjacent rail yard track to clear the area in front of Howard Terminal. This operation, called switching, regularly takes between 10 and 45 minutes to clear the area in front of Howard Terminal, but sometimes longer in unique circumstances. When the switching operation occurs, the only vehicle access points to the proposed Howard Terminal ballpark site will be blocked. Because of the proximity to the Union Pacific rail yards, normal operations will require freight trains to occupy the area in front of Howard Terminal at both Market Street and Martin Luther King on a regular basis. Trains do this today, but because of the industrial nature of the site, this is not problematic. Transportation plans associated with the A's proposal have indicated that Market Street and Martin Luther King will likely remain at grade and in conflict with the railroad. Leaving at-grade access points near Howard Terminal will put A's fans, future residents, and those accessing the site at risk. These plans should be heavily scrutinized as they are inadequate, rely on unreliable access to Howard Terminal, and are critically unsafe.
Rob, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present that. That's the first time we've shared that video. And I'm hoping that I see a lot of nodding heads on why it's a concern, when the trains are paused as part of the switching, and whether it's 10 minutes or 45 minutes, and you have a 35,000 seat stadium with people trying to get in to see the game or people trying to leave to get home, and a train is stopped there, people will make bad decisions. And we don't want anyone getting hurt. We don't want our employees to face any safety concerns, our customers or the community or the fans. We want there to be a safe ballpark experience as what fans currently enjoy at the Coliseum site. And so, with that being said, we have continued advocating for grade separated access or at-grade closures, permanent closures to accommodate smarter, safer access here. And without those being incorporated, we think that the plan is incredibly flawed. So with that, we appreciate the opportunity to present today and look forward to your continued support going forward.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. This is Jim Allison, Manager of Planning. Good morning, directors. I'm going to talk from some slides that, if you can put those up, that will carry on from those themes. So the comments for the draft EIR are due on April 7th, and the CCJPA has reviewed the contents in the transportation section, and they strongly align with what the video and what Adrian just was conveying. Effectively, in the green line there, you can see that's where the track is, and then the dashed red boundary area is the area of the Howard Terminal project. And from really all angles, at 180 degrees of angle, most of the patrons, aside from those who might take a ferry system but all of those who would come from BART walking from either West Oakland, 12th Street, or Lake Merritt, or via other transit services will be forced to cross the walkway area that goes right across the main line tracks. If you can go to the next slide. We looked and saw that there's no other Major League Baseball stadiums that have this arrangement exactly. So in EIR, largely the mitigations that are identified are from a 2011 final report on the Railroad Quiet Zone study. Those ideas were ideas pre-stadium, pre-proposal to the stadium. They do involve ideas of holding passengers clear on the sidewalks or what have you before a freight train is there. What includes fencing and things like that. But with so many openings with the blocks in that area, there are definitely concerns that folks will maybe not respect those fences. There is one, however, mitigation that is a overcrossing, and this is proposed in the EIR at either Clay or Jefferson Street, or maybe some other location where folks, instead of walking across, have the option to take a ramp or stairs or an elevator up, cross over the tracks, and then descend back down before entering the stadium. There is no design as you approach the stadium that forces this option to happen. So that is a concern, and we share the concerns that Adrian noted, that this is not, the design itself does not force this solution. As we can acknowledge in the EIR, and we can see that the EIR is aware that the California Public Utilities Commission would have to approve all the measures identified in the EIR for safety and for operations. But we do note in the EIR, they find that the impact of these are significant and unavoidable. If you can go to the next slide. So our comments, and these have been consistent throughout, is that the approach, the ingress, egress to the station area, to the stadium area and to the mixed use developments there, did not incorporate design elements to make that separation happen. There was a consideration for a road crossing that would elevate and cross over the tracks and descend into the stadium area, but that was eliminated, and that certainly didn't address the pedestrian concerns that are now aware of. We can go to the next slide. This is a basic synopsis, and we're not design consultants by any means, but just so you can get the concepts of what we're talking about here. Approximately a block separated across the street, if you will, from the stadium complex area. We use this image of the proposed crossings. Well, you can ramp up or have stairs or elevators or escalators, what have you. That can become the front door of the Oakland A's stadium. That can elevate people to cross over the tracks safely and then enter the stadium at that level and either descend down to the field level or go up to other higher level seats. This is a method of intercepting people coming from the different destinations in Oakland across that entire plane and separating them safely from access. This was not a design that was exactly considered in the proposal. And as such, we do have the concerns, and we are going to be conveying those concerns in our comment letter on the CEQA draft EIR. As well, we will comment on the CEQA approach taken with the draft EIR regarding these safety concerns that we have. So that's my extent of my presentation. And Rob, if you'd like to take, or the board has any questions, we can take those.
Yeah, thanks to Jim and some echo.
Okay, very good. Are we?
Sorry, my fault. Thanks to Jim and Adrian for, to add a little drama at the end. Thanks to Jim and Adrian for your presentation. And the board has been very committed to addressing pedestrian issues. And we, every year in partnership with Union Pacific have been working on a right-of-way program to secure the corridor, because we want our fatalities to be at zero. That is our goal, without a doubt. And as you know, when we have an incident, not only does it create trauma for the families impacted, it creates trauma for the engineer, and it also means that the train sits for hours. And so we are bringing this up. We have a great partnership with the A's, and we're a transportation agency. We're coming to this issue with that focus. And we do not necessarily know what the answer is, but we know we want to make sure that the issue is raised appropriately so that it can be addressed. And with that, we'll open it up to questions. If Adrian, you can stay on for a couple minutes if you have questions for Adrian or for Jim.
Thank you very much, Jim, Rob, and Adrian. I appreciate it. We have a couple of board members who have questions, and there's a few people in the public who would like to address us on this matter as well. So we'll start with Director Gilmore, and then we have Director McPartland.
Thank you. I was going to say that in Santa Clara, we have a similar situation at Levi Stadium where when the attendees to either football games or special events exit, they are exiting right onto the light rail tracks. And even though the fencing's up and everything else in Tasman Boulevard is a long road, they still try to figure out ways to get over the fence, and it does slow down the light rail at Levi Stadium, but we are always and constantly concerned about pedestrian safety because we have 65,000 people leaving at once, and they're all trying to cross the tracks. And it's just a constant battle. And so I would be concerned about this based on the experience that we've had in the last 5 or 6 years with the light rail track. So I just wanted to make those comments.
Thank you. Very insightful. Mr. McPartland.
I've got a major concern in relationship to life safety. The whole reason why we ended up putting a fire station in Jack London Square was just so that we could have medical intervention in the event, and also fire intervention, fire suppression intervention in the event that trains were blocking the trackway. Because of budget cuts in the past, that fire station has been closed. It's no longer occupied. It still belongs to the Fire Service Agency and is used as or the Oakland Fire Department, and it's still used as an office, but it is not staffed. And with what we're planning on doing in relationship to the terminal, that entire aspect from a emergency response and life safety standpoint is going to be exacerbated.
Thank you very much, Director McPartland. Directors Rayburn and Saltzman, do you have questions, or if you would like to continue discussion, could we listen to public comment first?
I'd love to hear public comment first.
Public comment.
All right, very good. So let's go to public comment at this point. And I see
We have
that,
5 public speakers.
thank you very much. We'll start with the caller 6262. These are the last 4 digits.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Roland Turbine.
And Roland, I'm going to ask that folks limit their time to 2 minutes, if you could, please. And starting now. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to be extremely short. I actually wanted to speak on the previous item, but I got called by the YouTube 1-minute delay. So I wanted to speak about the Davis Depot platform upgrade. Would you allow me to come back at the end?
And no, you can proceed since you're now speaking.
Okay, thank you. So my concern is that you're going to be building a new platform, and ADA requires that when you do that, the platform be level boarding. However, this is not going to be possible here because you have freight. And when you have freight, you got to understand that you don't go around designing platforms the way you design them for BOT. Because if you do and you raise the platforms, you're going to have platform strikes. The freight is going to hit them. So I don't know if you're familiar with gauntlet tracks, but personally, I'm totally not a fan of gauntlet tracks. What I do support is, as you go to the stations, is that you got 4 tracks. You got the 2 tracks in the middle, which are for the through traffic and for the freight. In other words, the freight is nowhere near the platforms. And they got 2 tracks on the outside with outboard platforms. Now, that's what that gives you. It's better safety for the passengers, because when you got through traffic coming through, they're not going anywhere near the platform. And also, if there is an unfortunate incident at the station, you don't block the line, because the 2 lines in the middle are still open for through traffic. And, that's basically the way it's designed. Now, if you have outboard platforms, and the only traffic that goes there are passenger trains, you can raise them and make them level boarding. So I thought I'd bring that to your attention as you go forward and design more stations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barnbaum for 2 minutes.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, thank you. I want to speak on this item. First of all, on the project itself, in order to revitalize a very key area of the city of Oakland and to keep the Oakland athletics where they need to be, rooted in Oakland, the waterfront ballpark project is critical to the infrastructure of the city of Oakland and needs to happen. That being said, I share the concerns about the safety, the overcrossings, the fencing, the security, and the zero tolerance policy of having 0 fatalities when one is in and around freight and passenger intercity railroad tracks. I think it is critical and paramount that the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority, the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, Union Pacific, the City of Oakland, Oakland Athletics Investment Group Limited Liability Corporation, all form a paramount partnership, financially contributing to all of the safety, security, fencing, and grade separations that were talked about in today's presentation. So as we look 25 years from now and look back to what happened April 21st, 2021, we could say, we did it. We are all partners in this. And we all succeeded because we came together on common ground and a common issue. And what we did for Oakland, they did it in Sacramento when they saved the Sacramento Kings. So we can do this all and be happy that all of our projects are done collaboratively.
Thank you,
Thank
Mike. Liz Ames for 2 minutes, please.
Hello, thank you. Yes, Liz Ames, Board Director. So I have brought this up at several board meetings, the last 2 board meetings, I believe, regarding this coordination and trying to make this project, the A's Stadium, really work with all of the infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, to make this, a showcase. I mean, honestly, if you think about Sydney, Australia, they've got the ferries, they got light rail, they have passenger rail. This area could be like Sydney, Australia, but it takes a lot of coordination and rail planning and rail improvements. I've met with the Port of Oakland. 90% of their freight is, 90% of their products are trucked. I've met with the Port of Richmond. They have issues with freight. They would like to have a staging area. And the reason why freight is so critical is that, it improves passenger rail. So I applaud the staff for Union Pacific and Capital Corridor and BART staff working together. This is huge. And I'm hopeful that we can reassess the Capital Corridor vision plan. I hate to bring up South Bay Connect, but just pick a project. I mean, this project is so critical to the success of Oakland and the Bay Area. There's also that single rail bridge built in 1929. That's between Benicia and Martinez, and you could, fix that as well to make sure we have reliable service to Oakland and then out of Oakland. I think Oakland is the key, it's the hub. And I'd hope to see this board reassess the vision for this area and put a lot of funding and transportation planning towards this effort. So thank you so much for providing this information. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Dave Campbell for 2 minutes.
This is Dave Campbell, Advocacy Director with Bike East Bay, bicycle advocacy organization here in Alameda and Contra Costa counties. And we are also submitting a comment letter on the A's ballpark, generally supportive of the location of the ballpark and its potential, but concerns about some bike access. But also we are encouraged about the pedestrian safety improvements being proposed with the ballpark regarding the railroad tracks. And so I want to ask, first I'll thank staff for agreeing to meet with me to discuss y'all's perspectives in more detail. But I'm just not convinced there's a pedestrian safety issue that's not being addressed with these at-grade crossings. And your video was certainly informative of the rail switching issue, but it was not a safety video at all. It was very conclusory on that issue. And so I'm looking for more information. What is the safety issue here? Because we want people to be safe too. We heard a board member talk about Levi Stadium. Why wasn't that mentioned in your report? I shouldn't be hearing from a board member her experience down in Santa Clara on that. We should be informed about that. And I have not been to a 49ers game down there, so I don't know personally. Our offices are at Jack London Square, so we see the tracks every day. Petco Park and San Diego Padres have a similar issue. Why wasn't that included in your report? And even the Coliseum, which has an at-grade crossing for large games, people are pouring out of that and crossing the street, San Leandro Boulevard, on foot, dodging trucks, cars, and traffic all the time. What have we learned from that in terms of at-grade crossings ability to address the issue? I'm intrigued by your 180-degree concept. Hadn't seen that before. Looking forward to learning more. But challenging everybody here, let's not assume there's a pedestrian safety issue with this project. Let's learn what it is. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Now we have a caller. Last four digits are 7403. Is that caller 7403? Are you planning to speak to us?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Good morning.
Morning.
Mike Jacob with Pacific Merchant Shipping Association. Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you to staff and to Mr. Guerrero for the presentation. We have numerous issues with the Howard Terminal project and are generally opposed to it. The location that the A's have picked for this project is an industrial location. It is built for industrial activities. The surrounding infrastructure is focused on freight movement and industrial activities. And it is not a transit-friendly site. There are no transit assets on site or nearby, and it is a real problem. But generally, with respect to the EIR, really thanks CCJPA for taking the focus directly on safety. The draft EIR acknowledges that if there are at-grade crossings, that there are significant unavoidable impacts of the project with respect to safety. However, in terms of alternatives you heard from your staff, they do not include a provision for a fully grade separated crossing environment. That is just something that they specifically determine is infeasible. And in part, they decide that because They believe that the project can't be required within the Oakland A's desirable time frame. And in fact, they said on page 659 of the draft EIR that this alternative wouldn't be considered because it compromises, quote, the Oakland Athletics' competitive position within MLB. We find that to be pretty offensive. This is supposed to be a 66-year project. It will be in place for decades to come. The fan safety issues are paramount, but obviously also impacts with our traffic and that impacts what we do. Our existing terminal infrastructure is built to an environmental capacity,
Can you
but
wrap
also
it up?
to a reach forward. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Sure, thank you. We're going to be growing our volumes about 50%. We need additional rail capacity and rail volume, and we really appreciate you guys taking this position to focus on grade separation. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today and for sharing those thoughts. Roland, do you still have your hand up? Are you asking to speak to this item? I guess not. Oh, wait, he's got a delay, doesn't he? So I'll tell you what, Roland, we'll come back to you in item 7.
Yeah, sorry, there's no way for me to turn my hand down.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
all of the commenters on this. We appreciate your input. Now we have 2 members of the board.
We have 1 speaker remaining.
Is it the 7403 speaker?
Yes.
Yeah, he just spoke. So
Okay, thank you.
thank you. So Director Rayburn, did you have a comment or questions?
Well, thank you, Chair Saylor, and thank you, Adrian, for your perspective from the Union Pacific Railroad and to all the hardworking Capitol Corridor staff on this project. I want to share a personal perspective. And I can recall numerous post-game experiences on the Coliseum pedestrian bridge to BART, where trains in all directions are staged to sweep over 1,000 passengers each from the platform. Following the A's free 50th anniversary game on April 17th of 2018, about 15,000 happy fans crossed that bridge following a 10-2 victory over the White Sox. And they created shoulder-to-shoulder crowds on the bridge. Now, imagine that bridge over the railroad tracks did not exist. Crowds would flow across tracks at any available opening. Think of herd behavior, where critical mass creates a sense of safety in numbers. In the best case, passenger or freight trains would be delayed rather than attempt to move forward. No stadium in the US permits post-game crowds to risk crossing mainline railroad tracks at grade. My example of the A's anniversary game was not the busiest event date at the Coliseum station. Ridership would have been higher if the A's had not provided free parking. Larger events, as measured at the BART Fairgates, included most A's playoff games, football games, and concerts like the U2 concert that attracted 27,000 on, or even earlier Day on the Green events. The DEIR is deficient in acknowledging the post-game event behavior or the Coliseum, or pardon me, the Capitol Corridor Vision Implementation Plan to increase passenger rail service above the 30 trains per day that pass in front of the Howard Terminal. For these safety and operational reasons, I urge the mayor and the city council to reject the current Howard Terminal plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. We appreciate that, Mr. Rayburn. That was a very powerful anecdote. Director Saltzman.
Thank you. I'm, of course, very excited about a new A's stadium, and I think it would be fantastic for Capitol Corridor, and we'd get a lot of new riders, and it's a good thing, and it's something we should be supporting. But I, share the concerns of staff and UP about the grade crossings, and I've had these concerns for a while because I think it was a couple years ago now the A's team came and presented to the BART AC Transit Committee, where Director Rayburn and I were on that committee. And they showed us the one pedestrian bridge, which is quite long. And, the main issue is when you get out of games, and it's a lot of people at once, especially when there's special things after games, like fireworks nights or something that keeps pretty much everybody till the end of the game. And you get tens of thousands of people leaving at once. And there's this one long bridge that's going to not be as direct as walking on the streets. I think a lot of people are going to want to walk on the streets. And so it is concerning that there aren't enough mitigations for all those people who choose to walk on the streets. And speaking of those fireworks games, when the A's have fireworks at the current Coliseum, they set them off from the BART Bridge. And so when you leave those games, you actually can't leave right away if you're taking BART. And sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's 15 minutes. I think I've been to a game where it was more like 20 minutes. I'm not sure what happened there. People get, especially who don't go to those games a lot, they get really antsy, and you're in a giant crowd with thousands of people waiting to get across. And there's like 3 or 4 security guards trying to keep you from going across. And I've seen more than a couple people try to dart out and run out. They get caught by security, so they don't make it very far. But just seeing that when the security is there telling them it's not safe, we need to clear the fireworks, telling them verbally, and they still try to go, it does concern me about what would happen after a game when there's a freight train there, especially if it's stopped at the moment. So I think more needs to be done. I want to see us work with the A's and work with the city of Oakland, because this is such an important project to Oakland and to Capitol Corridor. So I hope we can find a solution that meets everybody's needs, and we can figure out how to move forward safely and in a way that, makes it easy and convenient for A's fans to enjoy the games and not be frustrated by leaving a game and having to wait 10, 20, 30 minutes to cross safely. So I hope there will be updates beyond today going forward as we work on this with the city and with the A's.
I think that's very, very wise. The purpose of today's item was to share with the board the draft letter, the comment letter, and with realization that this is a significant project that brings many benefits to the region, and we do need to make sure that as it goes forward, that these safety issues are addressed. And really appreciate, Adrian, you being with us today. And thanks, Rob, for sharing this material, and to all those who commented. I think that's good. I don't see any other board members with I do see Vice Chair Perales has his hand up, so you'll be the last word on this item, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think, obviously I also am excited about the opportunity of I think, one, the A's staying here in the Bay Area, but 2, I think the opportunity here at Howard Terminal. And clearly, I think there are a lot of challenges that come with that, specifically with our crossing. And I just want to say that representative here in the South Bay now, we do have Mayor Gilmore with us from Santa Clara that I think will be able to provide some perspective, as certainly as was mentioned in the comments, right? Levi Stadium and the interactions that Levi's has, and I have attended a number of those games as a season ticket holder, and I take light rail regularly to them, and so experience what that is like. And certainly, I think just from our end here in the South Bay, I'm excited that we have Mayor Gilmore now on this board. So then that way, right, as the perspective can be shared, right? We're talking about a similar, very large venue right adjacent to rail, and where I think there's a lot of lessons learned. And I know, I'm not trying to speak for Mayor Gilmore, but certainly I imagine, right, Mayor, you can share a lot of perspectives in that regard as we're moving through this process. So.
Rob, thank you. Do you have what you need on this?
I do. Thank you very much for the feedback today.
Okay, that brings us to item 7, your manager director report.
All right, so we have a few items we're going to cover today, but we're going to start with a quick presentation by Karen Baker on our team. And you remember a few months ago, we came to you with an anti-racism statement that was developed by a small team on Capitol Corridor staff. And Karen will read today an anti-Asian Pacific Islander violence statement, and she will also describe where you will see that in the coming weeks. With that, I'll hand it over to Karen.
Thank you, Rob, and good morning, directors. I am pleased to read you our stand against anti-Asian Pacific Islander violence. In July 2020, we at the Capitol Corridor took a stand against racism and stood in solidarity with those who believe Black Lives Matter. Today, we are reaffirming our position by speaking out against anti-Asian Pacific Islander violence. We should all be able to go for a walk, worship, run errands, or head to work free from the fear of violence. Yet 6 women of Asian descent were gunned down in Atlanta at their workplace simply because of their race. Hak Ho was fatally beaten in Oakland as he took his morning walk. Xiao Zhen Shi was just waiting for a light signal to change when the 75-year-old woman was punched in the face. The rising vicious attacks on Asians and Pacific Islanders are based on malicious stereotypes and scapegoating that have been used for well over a century to marginalize groups of people and create division among Americans. This strategy paved the way for systemic racism against Asians and Pacific Islanders to become acceptable. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1862 began a wave of laws that denied Asian and Pacific Islander Americans their basic civil rights just because of their ethnicity. As an intercity passenger rail service, we honor the contributions and sacrifices that Chinese laborers, in particular, made to link the industrial United States in the 1800s through their work on America's transcontinental railroad. Not only did they do the backbreaking labor to lay track and create tunnels, but hundreds died from accidents, explosions, and illness, while their community suffered from the indignity of bigotry. Racism has no place in the 21st century. We must unite and stand against this disturbing rise in anti-Asian Pacific Islander violence. We want those who use our service to always feel welcomed, safe, and an integral part of the Capitol Corridor community. Our statement today is part of our dedication to making a difference and our ongoing commitment toward a better future. Thank you.
And Karen, can I ask you just to very quickly describe where board members will see this posted in the coming week?
Yeah, so we will post this on the website in the news section. We should be doing that today. I'm not sure it's up there right now, but we'll definitely get this on our website, and we will also be sharing this via our social media channels.
Thank you very much, Karen.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Very strong statement. We're very well crafted and very, very important, critically important. We stand with our friends and brothers.
Thank you.
All right, and now we'll just give a quick update on performance, and we will be done with the presentation today. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick slide to show you where we are on ridership. We are starting to tick back up. I would say we are definitely seeing a slow and steady increase week over week. Weekends a little bit busier even than weekdays, interestingly. So we're keeping our eyes on that. Next slide. So this is a summary of where we are on performance. As you would expect, our ridership as compared to FY20 is down quite a bit. The one thing I would like to point out here is on-time performance. We are at 91% for FY21, and as you're aware, we've been hovering in kind of the high 80s in recent, really the last 2 years. And we had a major change to the schedule on March the 29th. And I will tell you that just since that schedule change, we have seen our 100% days go up substantially. So since that date, almost 60% of our days have been 100% days. I think you are going to see a notable increase in on-time performance in the coming months, and I'm excited to bring those numbers back to you in June. I would like to give a compliment to Leo Sanchez and his support team who provided that, including Mike Henley, who's our transportation manager. They were very actively involved in making that schedule change, and we already see a change coming. So keep your eyes on those numbers as we move forward. Next slide. Next slide. So just an example, and we talked about this today. We continue to have challenges with the right-of-way. We're working actively, and you saw in the previous slide some pictures of that. We do have 10 fatalities in our current fiscal year. In partnership with Union Pacific, we will continue to actively support this program, and in the consent agenda today, we approved additional funding for that. Next slide. Want to just highlight the corridor conversations. We had a roundtable we brought together, and hats off to the marketing team here who had this idea. It was a way for us to continue to engage with our customers. As we're all working at home and our ridership's down, we have a lot of Capital Corridor fans who we want to reach out to. We had this session with the other two JPAs. We had almost 200 people attend. We had a really great conversation, and I think it was a good way to share the message of intercity passenger rail and what we're doing in California. And these are all posted online, so we have people reviewing these all the time. So lots of great stuff happened. Next slide. And in the spirit of coming back, we have another one coming up here on April 28th with lots of your own local visit organizations. And so we want to do partnerships here to encourage people to start to travel. I think we're going to see a lot of local travel in California this year. And we want to be there for our customers and potential customers. Next slide. And then lastly, I'll leave you with a highlight of our customer service report. We continue to see large numbers of what we call neutral comments. And we see neutral comments as a great thing, because that means we have questions or inquiries, and we're able to answer those. They're not mad, they're not upset, but we're getting information out there. We've worked hard in the last several months to develop lots of channels that make it easier for our customers to reach out to us, and we're seeing that continue to pay off. And with that, I think that will do it for the slides, and I'll be happy to take any questions on anything I've presented in the Managing Director's report.
Rob, thank you very much. Are there any questions, colleagues? I don't see any hands raised by our board members. So, Rob, I would like to just, I think you've completed the presentations for the day. The other items 8 and 9, are those just available for board members to look at if they have any questions on any of them, to raise them at this point, or just?
And you're referring to the PowerPoint presentation, is that correct?
I'm referring to work completed, item 8, and work in progress.
Oh, yeah.
Assuming you're not planning.
Yeah, so those two are in the packet. So if there are any questions on any of the projects described in either work completed or work in progress, I'll also be happy to take any questions on any of those projects.
Okay. So at this point, does any member of the board have questions about items 7, 8, and 9 on our agenda? Okay, I don't see any. I appreciate it. Thank you, Rob. I really appreciate Karen's presentation. American API.
No public commenters.
Great. So we'll move to item Roman numeral 6, which is board director reports. Does anyone have anything you'd like to share for the good of the cause? Don't see any raised hands. That brings us to our final closing public comment, item Roman numeral 7. Are there any members of the public who'd like to address us on matters not on the agenda?
We have one.
All right. Very good. Unless it's a 2-minute comment, who is the speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Roland Turbine, San Jose. So as you may have read in the press, there are some governance conversations taking place at Caltrain. And one of the ideas being bandied around is that Caltrain should somehow merge with BART. And remember, I have a different position on this. What I do believe is that the CCJPA model is a correct one. And what should really be happening is that essentially BART is going to be replacing Samtrans and take over Caltrain administration. I'm watching these boards, and this is going very well. I think the way we should be going. But the reason I'm addressing you is that board member Heminger made a comment that Capital Corridor did not have a single employee. They were all BART employees. And we all know that this is not true. So I went to the CCJPA website looking for an org chart, and I couldn't find one. So that's my, ending wish for the day is, could somebody please put an org chart out there so that I can point Mr. Heminger to all the wonderful people who work for Capital Corridor? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. That's an excellent suggestion. I think that's it for public comment. I think it is.
Yes.
All right. Very good. Rob, Mr. Paget, you had a wonderful day. I think you presented exciting information. We're really excited about the return to increased service levels and with various projects that are moving forward. Nice work today to all of your team. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time on June 16th, 2021. Same bat channel. Bye-bye.